I've got a fat quarter and a zipper in 5 minutes, which is all you're going to need to make this next project. Hey friends, welcome back to my sewing room. My name is Becca, and in today's video, I am going to give you a free pattern in the description box down below and a video tutorial to show you how to make a super simple, super friendly pencil pouch. This is something that anybody can sew. All you need to know how to do is sew a straight seam. Please do not let the zipper that is included in this intimidate you at all, because it is super, super easy. Also, in the video, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks at the end so that if you really like this, but you want to make it your own, because I am a firm believer the pattern is just a starting off point, you can do so. So make sure to stick around to the end for all those tips and tricks. Let's get started. Cutting doodah, cutting A. My, oh my, what a wonderful day. I'm going to be honest with you. This is a video tutorial that I attempted to do, maybe I did do years and years and years ago, and I'm sewing this by memory. So this is the moment where I'm going to hope that I'm recalling the cutting instructions correctly. I've made a ton of these, and so the cutting dimensions were seared into the back of my brain for a long time. And now I'm hoping that my recall is correct. We'll find out later if it's not. So I cut my 3 pieces, and I actually didn't remember it correctly, but as my hand started running through the rotary cutter, I quickly remembered what those dimensions were. You're going to need a 7.5 inch by 3.5 inch piece, a 7.5 inch by 10.5 inch piece, and both of those are going to be for the front part of your bag. For the back part of your bag, you're going to need a 7.5 inch by 7.5 inch piece. Now, if you want your bag to look lined, meaning you want to see pretty fabric when you open it up and look inside, you're going to want to cut 2 of those fabrics. One will be your outside, one will be your lining. I never really worry about putting a lining fabric inside of this because I'm not even going to finish or treat the seams in any way. This is meant to be a super quick sew, so I'm just going to cut the one, but you can do what works for you. You can see I've got all of this fabric left over, which is more than enough to make this bag again. Let me show you how this comes together. The first thing that we're going to do is take our middle fabric, this would be our fabric B, and we're going to set it aside. This is the one that if you're going to have your bag lined, you need to have 2 of. For your fabric A and your fabric C, you're going to take both of those and fold them in half, kind of like this, so that it remains 7.5 inches wide, and the edges down here are nice and lined up. And then I'll take it over to my iron and set that crease with my hot iron, because it probably wouldn't work very well if it was a cold iron. Would you believe we're almost done? And we haven't even sewed a single seam yet. So now I'm going to bring in my zipper, and all you really need is about a 9-inch zipper, but I don't buy prepackaged zippers. I always buy my zippers by the yard, and then I get some pretty pulls to go with it. That allows me to cut off the length of zipper that I need whenever I need it. But this can be a little intimidating for those of you out there that are just starting to play with zippers. I'm going to show you how I work with zipper by the yard, but if you prefer to use a prepackaged zipper, that is completely okay. You can absolutely do that. Just make sure that those metal stops at either end of that zipper are not in the way of your needle when you go to sew this together, because those metal pieces will cause you to break a needle. Ask me how I know. So for my project, I need my zipper to be a little bit longer or a little bit wider than my fabric. All 3 of my fabric pieces measure 7.5 inches wide. So that's why I said about 9 inches works. I am just going to lob off a length of my zipper by the yard. And then I'm going to set this fabric aside, and we're going to start attaching the fabric to the zipper. Because I have a zipper pull that is not already secured to the zipper tape, it's just a lot easier for me if I sew the fabric onto the zipper before I put the pull on. You could absolutely put the pull on. You could leave the pull on if you wanted to. You'll just have to finagle it out of the way as you're sewing. What I usually find is I'll sew a length, pause, lift my foot up, and then pull the zipper to the back whether that's opening or closing the zipper, doesn't matter. And then I put my foot down and continue sewing. You can also do this with a zipper foot if you would like. That's going to get your seam, your stitching even closer to the fold without having to deal with all of the bulkiness from the zipper teeth. But you'll be able to see I'm going to sew this with my normal foot because it doesn't matter. As long as the fabric is holding onto the zipper, that's all that matters. So I'm going to sew my bottom piece on first. And I'm going to turn this over because I have selvage and I want that to be in the inside of the bag. I don't want to see it on the outside. And I'm just going to line up the fold right up against my zipper teeth. And then I'll take this over to my machine. Now that my bottom is secured on there, we're going to do the same thing with the top. We're going to take the folded edge, butt it up against the teeth of the zipper, and we're going to try to approximately line it up so that the edges on the left and right side are right next to each other. Then we'll pick it up, take it over to our sewing machine. Step one is done. The front of my bag is assembled, but it's missing something. A zipper pull. I can't do anything. I can't get into the bag without this. So we need to install this. I know some of you out there are probably freaking out a little bit because this can be intimidating to you, but I promise it's not difficult. My trick here is to make sure that my zipper tape is wider than the project that I'm working on by a couple of inches. I usually do it on both sides just to be safe. Then I'm just going to rip this apart. And when I go to put it back together, I need the piece that is going to be in my dominant hand is going to start before the other piece. So I end up using the same muscle memory that you use when you zip up your coat. The zipper is facing towards me. I am right-handed, so I have the pull in my right hand, and the right side of the zipper is out just a little bit more, just a couple of teeth more than the left side. Now that will make the edges of my bag a little unlined up, but that's okay because this project is super forgiving. I'm going to thread the zipper teeth into the right side of the zipper head, and when I can see one or two of the teeth coming out of the back of the zipper, I'm going to hold the zipper head and the zipper tape in place so it doesn't move, and then I'll take my other hand and feed in the zipper. Once it feels like it's in there, then I've got to do this awkward move where I'm holding on to both tails of the zipper tape and I grab the pull and I just slide it over. Are you amazed at how simple that was? The trick is to make sure that one of the pieces is just a little bit longer than the other so that you can thread in one side and hold onto it while you're putting the other side into the zipper. No special tools needed. Super simple. Now that our zipper is installed on the bag, we only have one more step to do and then we're done. So I'm going to take the zipper, I'm going to open it up because I will be turning this inside, right side out by using that hole. Then I'm going to take my back side and I'm going to put it pretty side down on top of my bag fabric. And you should find that they are approximately the same size. Now, when I'm installing this zipper, I might want to take it over to my machine just to kind of keep it nice and tidy and just do a tiny little stitch right here. That'll hold the teeth of the zipper closed or in a closed position, even though the zipper is open. It'll just make it easier to manage all of this when I'm putting it together. Because I am working with a nylon zipper, I can sew right over those zipper teeth. Most of the zippers that you're going to find in a quilt shop will be zippers that you can sew over the teeth for. But if you know that your zipper has metal teeth or you're afraid that it does, don't sew over the teeth because that too will break your needle. All right, I've got my front panel laid here with the zipper open. I'm going to take my back side and put it on top of here. And remember, if you are putting this together so that you have a lined fabric, you would just have this cut twice as wide and folded in half, or you would have two different pieces and those pieces would be wrong sides together. So when you put this together, you'll have a pretty side facing the front and a pretty side facing you. Mine isn't going to be lined because I'm not that fancy. I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew around all 4 edges without leaving a hole. At this point, if you wanted to install a pretty little tag or a zipper handle or a wristlet or whatever the case may be, you can absolutely do that. You're going to put it in between the layers and tuck it to the inside of the bag and make sure that you can catch it in that seam allowance. The bag is now all sewn together, but we've got to do a little bit of cleaning up. So I'm going to take my rotary cutter and I'm just going to cut off the excess zipper on either side of the bag. If you got it a little off skew, you can use this opportunity to square it all up and clean up those seam allowances if you want to. I'm not going to because, like I said, I'm not that fancy. Then I'm just going to reach inside the hole that I left and I'm going to turn it right side out. I'll poke out my corners and zip it up, and you have got a cute little fabric zipper pouch ready to go. This size is amazing. I have made a ton of these for friends over the years. It holds sewing notions, pencils, markers, crayons, pens, whatever you need to throw in there. And it's great to keep down in the bottom of a book bag. Now, I did promise you that there is a way that you could use this to formulate your own version of how you want to make this. I have been making a few of these over the weekend, and really the only rule that you have is that the width has to stay the same. So when you're looking at this one, even though the zipper goes up and down like this, just consider it to be a short, extra wide version. So when I cut this, I had a back piece, I had a top piece and a bottom piece, and these were both folded with the folds going up next to the zipper. And all 3 pieces were the same width. So if we're looking at this bag, if I wanted to make this a little bit taller, I would still cut it at 7.5 inches wide. I would just make the top piece when it's folded in half and the bottom piece when it's folded in half to be at least the same height as the back piece. So for this bag, I had a 7.5 inch piece on the back, and then the front I had 3.5 inch and then 10.5 inch, but each of those were folded in half. So I really only had about half of that to work with. So figure about 1.5 inches and about 6 inches, and 1.5 and 6-ish is bada bing, bada boom, 7.5 inches. It does not have to be perfect because, as you saw, you have the ability to clean up your seam allowances afterwards. So if you are a little bit off and your back is longer than the 2 pieces that are put together in the front, that just means you get an extra creative choice because you get to decide if you want the zipper more towards the top, more towards the middle, or shoot, maybe even down at the bottom. This is a really easy project to do. You can add tabs, wristlets, tags, all sorts of things to this, and it lets you work with a zipper without doing any sort of extras. So this is really easy to put together, but I know some of you out there are probably still questioning whether or not you want to work with the zippers. Zippers can be very intimidating for a lot of people. So let me give you a couple of rules that I use when I'm working with zippers. First, this project has the zipper just laying flat, so it's going to be super easy. But if that's still difficult for you, you can use some double-sided tape or some glue to secure the fabric and the zipper tape together. That'll hold it in place just long enough for you to take it over to the sewing machine and stitch it together. Second, don't be worried about trying to stitch right next to that folded line if you are new to the world of zippers. You have plenty of room on that zipper tape to sew with your standard foot presser thingy. Presser foot that's on your machine. You saw I did it here. Does it look professional and polished and have that stitching line right next to the fold? No, but it's holding onto the zipper and it's doing its job. If you want to have that stitching right up next to the edge of the fabric, change out your foot. Don't leave your standard foot on your machine because that's going to make it really difficult for you to sew. One side of your presser foot's going to want to be up higher because of the zipper teeth. The other side's going to be lower. And trust me when I tell you that you're going to keep weaving off of it and you're not going to be able to sew a straight line. So if you have a zipper foot and you prefer to get it closer, you can use that. You can also use an edge foot if you have one of those. I think those are all the tips that I have for you. These are an addictive make. I hope you make a ton of them for all of the friends and loved ones in your life. Let me know in the comments down below if you enjoyed this type of tutorial. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already subscribed already and all the other stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!